Exodus 3, 1 through 15. Now Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian, and he led his flock to the west side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. He looked, and behold, the bush was burning, yet it was not consumed. And Moses said, I will turn aside to see this great sight, why the bush is not burned. When the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, Do not come near. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. And he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. Then the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them out of the land of the Egyptians, and to bring him up out of that land to a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And now behold, the cry of the people of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppress them. Come, I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? He said, But I will be with you, and this shall be the sign for you that I have sent you when you have brought the people out of Egypt. You shall serve God on this mountain. Then Moses said to God, If I come to the people of Israel and say to them, The God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, What is his name? What shall I say to them? And God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said, Say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. God said to Moses, Say this to the people of Israel, The Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and thus I am to be remembered throughout all generations.
This is the word of the Lord. You can go ahead and be seated. Thank you, Chris. Of course, I gave her the longest text we've ever done on a Sunday morning, made you guys stand through all of it. Last week, we were at, Melanie and I were at Cadence Church in Boynton First Baptist. If you need a pride shot to your pride when your youngest son or your youngest child is a member of another church, when he's been raised in this church. Oh man, it hurts. But he's in a great church, and last week we were there, and man, they had us stand up, sit down so many times. I'm like, next week I'm just gonna have our church just stand up the whole time. So my bad. If you're doing the math, you're freaking out right now because Chris just read from Exodus chapter 3. And we're trying to get through the book of Exodus this year, and we've already been in Exodus chapter 4, and you're like, what the heck? Why are we going backwards? We're going backwards because my friend Dave, and I am so grateful for Dave Weir, filling in 2 times over the past month. One of them was unscheduled because my grandfather died, and so he did that during my grandfather's funeral. But he got to go into chapter 4, and I wanted to preach this specific text. So I selfishly gave him the stuff like, hey, throw your serpent or the rod down, and it becomes a serpent, and I will do the one with the burning bush. And so that's why we're going backwards, okay? But when we get to Easter Sunday, and this is crazy, but on Easter Sunday, we're going to be in Exodus chapter 5, okay? So on Resurrection Sunday, we're going to be in the book of Exodus. But today, we're going to be in Exodus chapter 3, the story, again, with the burning bush and talking through God's name. And like I said, if you struggle with anxiety or worry or fear, hopefully, by the end of this will really speak to you and encourage you. Now, in this text, if you grew up in church, this is one of those stories that was on the flannel board in Sunday school. You've heard bits and pieces of this. It's one of the most famous passages of Scripture in the entire Bible, and it really sets up everything that's going to take place in and throughout the book of Exodus. But I don't want it to go past us. What's happening in this particular chapter, where those of us that know this story, we just kind of take this story for granted, but what's happening is, Moses is having a face-to-face conversation with God Almighty, and that's not normal, right? Maybe it's normal for you. I have never seen God face-to-face, so every time I pray, I'm praying to an invisible God. I'm assuming by faith that he's listening to me, but here's Moses talking to the very presence of God, and God is audibly responding. That's a really, really big deal. And I want to walk through that conversation because I noticed something this week. There's a movie, and it's my favorite movie. There's a movie that I swear at least part of this movie was based upon this part of Exodus, or everything going on in Moses' life here in Exodus. So here's what's going on. We got this burning bush. Moses is 80 years old, and he's out in the wilderness. He's tending sheep. His life is ruined. He's convinced his life is ruined. He blew everything when he was 40 years old when he killed an Egyptian. And so now he's just been wandering around, tending his father-in-law's sheep, bored to death, thinking that the best of his life was behind him. And all of a sudden, he notices a burning bush. And if you remember from, I don't even know how many weeks ago it was that we talked about this burning bush wasn't being consumed. That's what was so unique about this bush, is that it was on fire. And things that are on fire always need an agent or a source to burn. It needs fuel to burn the fire. And this bush wasn't being consumed. It wasn't using outside source. And so we find out this is a statement God is making that I am self-existent. I am self-reliant. I don't need anybody. I don't need anyone. And then to get even weirder, this bush, not only is it not being consumed, but it starts talking. And out of this bush starts talking directly to Moses, and that had to freak him out. So here's this bush, and this bush says, hey, Moses, come on over, man, come on over. And have you ever noticed the faith in Moses in that moment? He's like, okay, cool, here I am. Like, that's how he comes and approaches that bush. At this point, the bush isn't asking anything of him except to approach. He's like, this is pretty cool. I want to see what this is. So like, here I am. And the bush has this conversation with Moses, and it's beautiful what happens. It's something that we're going to look at more deeply on Easter Sunday. The bush, the voice from the bush, which we see is God in the form of the presence of, or the angel of the Lord's presence, which we unpacked and said it's likely that that's actually Jesus, starts speaking to Moses, and it's like, hey, I've heard the cries of my people. I've heard what's going on in Egypt. All 5 million of my people that are enslaved in Egypt, they've been crying out for me. They've been shouting out to me. I want you to know that I've heard them. And Moses, I'm going to use you to do something about it. To which, all of a sudden, Moses' tune switches. Like, he's really confident. Here I am, Lord. And that echoes what's going on with Samuel and Isaiah, these other prophets that would be like, hey, God, here I am, okay? I'm here for you. Moses is like, I'm here. What's going on, bush? And the bush says, I am going to lead the people out of Egypt, and I'm going to use you to do it. And Moses switches his tune. He's like, no, not me. Do you know who I am? Do you know what I've done? Don't you remember 40 years ago, I killed an Egyptian? God's like, yeah, man, I really wish you wouldn't have done that. Like, what were you thinking, man, losing your temper? But it's okay, Moses, because I work all things together for good, for my glory and for those that love me. And so I've used this, and I'm still using this. Yeah, but God, you don't understand. Like, I understand if you wanted to use me to pull the people out of Egypt while I was in Egypt, when I was the grandson of Pharaoh, when I had influence, when I had power, when I had prestige, when I was going through my education, during all of that, I understand it. But God, for the last 40 years, I've done nothing but grow older. Everything's saggier. I'm not strong. I'm weak. I'm all these things. I can't do this. I can't do this. And then God shows up in a remarkable way. He's like, listen, Moses, everything that you've been through, whether it's in Egypt or out of Egypt, I've orchestrated this. I'm sovereign and I'm good, and I'm using every single bit of this for you to lead my people out of Egypt. So all the stuff you learned in Egypt, when you learn how to read and write, I'm going to use that someday when you write the first 5 books of the Bible. I need you to be literate. By the way, you're going to also learn military strategy, so you're going to know how to lead people. And Moses probably like, yeah, I get that, how that could be used, but what about the last 40 years? And God's like, well, the last 40 years you've been taking care of sheep. I've stilled your heart. I've taught you to be a pastor. I've taught you how to love. I've taught you how to be humble. Where Pharaoh would teach you how to be prideful, I'm teaching you how to be humble, and I'm going to use all of it, and God does. He uses all of it through Moses to lead his people out. Now, I told you that this reminds me of the beginning of a movie. And it just clicked with me. And I told Melanie and Joey and Haley last night about this. And Melanie's like, this is just an excuse for you to talk about this movie. I'm like, well, yeah, but the illustration actually fits. This isn't a stretch at all. It works. How many of you guys, you've seen the original Karate Kid from 1986? Karate Kid? Okay. So the best movie ever. How many of you guys are such diehards you've watched every episode of Cobra Kai on Netflix? Me too, okay? So I'm with you. So Karate Kid, my favorite movie, but I just want to talk about a specific part. The beginning of Karate Kid, if you've never watched it, what are you doing? You've got to watch it. So Karate Kid, best movie ever. And so at the beginning of the Karate Kid, you've got Daniel, who later is known as Danielson. He's just a teenage boy, like 16, 17 years old, and he has moved from Jersey to California, and he's getting picked on. He's being bullied at his new school. Johnny Lawrence and Cobra Kai, this dojo, this wicked karate dojo, they're bullying him. They're picking on him because he's hitting on Johnny's girlfriend. Not good, not good. And so this thing takes place. He's getting bullied. And one day, while he's getting bullied, he's getting beat up, all of a sudden some man shows up and defends him and protects him and uses karate to take down Cobra Kai. Now, this man wasn't any man. This was, even if you haven't watched Karate Kid, you've heard this name. It was Mr. Miyagi. And so Mr. Miyagi comes and he takes care of these kids, wipes them out. And Daniel figures it out that it was Mr. Miyagi that helped him out. So he goes to Mr. Miyagi. He's like, you need to teach me karate. He's been trying to learn karate through a book, and he's like, Mr. Miyagi, you know real karate. Will you teach me? And ultimately, Mr. Miyagi's like, yeah, I'll teach you. And if you remember, how did he teach Daniel how to do karate? It was wax on, wax off, paint the fence, sand the floor, right? He put him to work. He put Daniel to work. So one time he had to wash that beautiful old yellow car, and Daniel's like, hey, this is how I'm washing and waxing. He's like, no, Daniel, no, wax on. Wax off, right? I'm sorry for the impressions. They told me I couldn't, but the impressions are too good. So wax on, wax off. Then he had to paint the fence. So paint the fence. He's like, seriously, Daniel, who paints the fence? He's like, ugh. He's like, no, paint the fence. Like this, right? You know where this is going. And then he's like, sand the floor. It was the opposite of wax on, wax off. Is go like this. And Daniel's like, ugh. And he's like, no, like this, like this. And finally, Daniel's had enough. He's been fed up, and I would be too. Daniel's like, what are you doing? I thought, I need to learn karate. I've got to fight in this tournament. I'm getting my butt kicked at school every single day. Mr. Miyagi, when am I going to learn karate? Daniel, right? And he makes Daniel-san, focus, Daniel-san. Look in eye. And so Daniel looks in eye, and he goes, show me, paint the fence. And he's like, no, right? And so Mr. Miyagi takes a punch, and he blocks it with paint the fence. Then he shows, hey, wax on, wax off. No, wax on, wax off. And he punches him again. He blocks it with wax on, wax off. Does the kick. Blocks it with sand the floor. And then you remember Mr. Miyagi goes off. It's like, like this whole 30-second thing. And Daniel's just like, what am I doing? I'm blocking everything. It all came together. All these fundamental things that he learned while sanding the floor, painting the fence, waxing the car, all these things, he just thought he was just suffering and doing chores to pay off the karate bill that he would be taught later. The whole time Mr. Miyagi was teaching him karate and he had no clue. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a perfect illustration of what's going on with Moses. It is. It's insane. That is so good. And so here's what's going on with Moses. Moses is in the wilderness being taught to wash the car, wax on, wax off, paint the fence, sand the floor. And he's like, God, I can't do this. And God's like, I've been training you this whole time, Moses. In the good times and the bad times, every part of your life, every part of your story, I've been training you for this moment. And what does Moses do in this conversation? Gosh, it's so frustrating because you know what Moses is and what he becomes, but it's so frustrating. Moses doesn't believe God. And he asks God two questions. In this, he asks God two specific questions. Question number one, these are great questions, but his attitude in the question is terrible. Who am I? Is question number one. Who am I? I'm a nobody. I'm a shepherd. My prime is way behind me. Who am I? And then question number two, which really should have been question number one, God, who are you? Who are you? This is an important question. It's interesting because John Calvin, you've heard me talk about this. One of my favorite theology books is The Institutes of the Christian Religion by John Calvin. Last year, I read it in whole. I read 5 pages a day. It's a 2,000-page book, and I couldn't handle any more than that. And this is how this book starts. Of everything that Calvin would talk about, and he doesn't just talk about the things that you know as Calvinism. He talks about a bunch of things, a bunch of doctrine. At the beginning, this is what he says. Nearly all the wisdom we possess, that is to say, true and sound wisdom, consist of 2 parts, the knowledge of God and the knowledge of ourselves. Later, he would say, it is certain that man never achieves a clear knowledge of himself unless he first looked upon God's face and then descends from contemplating him to scrutinizing himself. What Calvin is saying here, he's saying the 2 most important questions or the 2 most important things that we can do with our life is discover who God is, and then in light of who God is, who we are. And whenever we're trying to discover who we are and then define God by who we are, we've got it backwards. Because you and I, ladies and gentlemen, according to the book of Genesis, we were created in his image. He was not created in ours. So if we want to know who we are, we first must discover who our Creator is. Once we understand who he is, then we have an inkling of who we might be. And Moses starts with this. He starts with this question. God's got him on assignment. He's like, I'm going to use you. I'm going to use you to get my people out of Egypt, this huge monumental task. And Moses doesn't want to do it. Moses is scared. Moses is afraid. Moses is anxious. So he tries to get out of it. Understand that these two questions of who am I and who are you, these are not faith-filled questions. These are Moses tucking his tail and doing everything in his power to try to get out of something. Parents, you know this. Everybody in here, at one time or another, when you were a kid, you used these tactics and you were hoping mom and dad were gullible enough to buy into it. Right? I can't do that. Who am I? And by the way, since that didn't work, who are you? Who am I and who are you? So we're going to look at these two questions today that Moses asked in this text. And at the end, we'll wrap it up and show you what it does with anxiety and fear. First of all, who am I? Like I said, Moses isn't doing this because he's genuinely interested in finding out his identity. He's not a millennial, all right? He's not like, hey, out in the margins on the journey in my story where we unpack things. Who am I, right? Those are all key words for millennials, by the way. If you missed that, you're a millennial. And so who am I? He's not having an existential crisis where he's trying to really figure out who he is. He's trying to get out of this task that God is calling him to. He's trying to avoid it. And to a degree, I understand why, right? On a practical sense, Moses is thinking, man, when I left here 40 years ago, I was Egypt's most wanted man. They want to kill me. So when I show back up, now I know there's a new Pharaoh, but when I show back up, I wonder if there's still posters like of me where there's a death warrant on my head. By the way, who am I where the Israelites, you want me to rescue the Israelites, the Jewish people, of which, by the way, I've never been with them. For 40 years of my life, I was ruled and grew up in Pharaoh's home. I was Egyptian with Hebrew blood. And by the way, the last 40 years of my life, I've been in Midian. And you want me to go to the Hebrew people and they don't even know who I am? Who am I? Did you, when Chris was reading this or when you read this story before, did you pay attention to how God answered? It's almost comical because it's the same way Jesus answers questions in the New Testament. Have you ever noticed how Jesus answers questions in the New Testament? They ask him a very straightforward question and he answers in a way you're like, I don't even know what that meant, right? He'll either retort with another question or be like, what are you talking about? And then later on, he'll explain it and they're like, oh, okay, that's what you meant. But it's not clear in the moment. So Moses asks, who am I? Tell me who I am. And God responds with, I'm with you. Huh? I'm with you? Like, hey, mom, I'm now 20, and so I've got millennial questions. I don't know why I'm picking on millennials. Gen X just doesn't care, so that's why I'm going to the millennials. So, hey, mom, I'm trying to figure out who I am. Who am I? And mom's like, I'm with you. Like, huh? What kind of answer is that I am with you? Who am I? And I am with you. And I want you to notice something beautiful that God does here. This is incredible. And I'm telling you, I'm preaching to myself. And if you care to listen in and apply it to you, you can as well, okay? But I am definitely preaching to myself. Do you notice what God does with this answer? Moses is having a pity party. He doesn't want to do it. He doesn't think he can do it. And partially, he's right. He can't do it. He's blown it. He's old. He's made so many big mistakes. God, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And God's like, hey, I'm with you. Check out what God does. God totally ignores the pity party that Moses is having. Moses has self-pity up the wazoo, and God's like, just ignore it. Parents, you've been there, right? When your kid has done that. Wives, you've done that when your husbands have been there, right? And we're having the pity party like, he'll get over it. Just go eat something, you'll be okay. So this is what's going on. God doesn't come at Moses when Moses says, who am I? And God doesn't go, oh, Moses, you're my leader. You're my guy. You're my boy, Blue. We're good. You're going to lead the people. You've got all these qualifications. Look what you've done, what you've learned in Egypt. And by the way, I've taught you all these things in the wilderness. You're the guy. And God hypes up his self-esteem. God doesn't do that at all. God says, I'm with you. For those of you guys that aren't millennials, my generation, Gen X, when Saturday Night Live was at its best in the 90s, right? You with me? In the 90s, we had a character that did a sketch in Saturday Night Live called Stuart Smalley. And every week he would come on the set, and he would look in the mirror and he would affirm himself to build up his self-esteem. This is what Stuart Smalley would do. And I know it's blurry and fuzzy, but I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. And I think that's what Moses is looking for. God, who am I? Well, Moses, you're a good boy, right? Oh, just pet his little head. But God doesn't do, you can take it down, please. God doesn't do that. God's like, I'm not going to talk about, you want to know who you are? Well, it really doesn't matter, Moses. I'm with you. All that matters in this story, all that matters in this mission, all that matters in this task ahead is that I am with you. And so the real question shouldn't have been, who is Moses, but what is God up to in Moses' life? And so the rest of the Exodus, getting the Israelites out of Egyptian slavery, it did not, and this is what God was stamping right here, it did not depend on the competency of Moses. It depended entirely on what? The presence of God. And we see this throughout the Israelite journey. Every time God is present, they win. Every time God is absent, they lose. So Moses, it doesn't matter who you are. What matters is, am I with you? And Moses says, I can't do this. And God is like, you're right. But the good news is, I'm with you. So listen, anytime God calls us, think about this. Anytime God calls you to any area of service, he wants you to teach kids, Sunday school. He wants you to be a youth leader. He wants you to lead worship. He wants you to start a Bible study at your workplace. He wants you to go to a nursing home and do stuff with them. Anytime he calls you to something, any kind of service, it's always with the promise that he will be present. Always. It's not like, hey, this is what I am. I'm good enough. I'm smart enough. Doggone it, people like me, so therefore I'll start a ministry. No, the question is God with you? Has God made this promise? Is he with you? Think about this. Here's some text out of the Old Testament where God promises his presence, and it made all the difference to Joshua. In Joshua chapter 1, so we're not going to spend a lot of time in this, but at the end of this, I give the cat out of the bag. This whole Exodus journey is to get the people of Israel not only out of Egypt, but into the promised land. Just like salvation, we're saved from sin and death, but we're saved to purpose and we're saved to eternal life, okay? So we're saved from something and we're resurrected to something. So the Israelites are going to be rescued from Egyptian slavery, and they're going to be rescued or living in the promised land. And Moses never gets to go there because of a sin he commits. Instead, Joshua is the one who leads them into the promised land. Joshua 1, this is what God says to Moses. Just as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not leave you. I will not forsake you. This is the verbiage and the language of the cross as well. Judges 6:16, where Gideon's got a military thing that he's having issues with. The Lord said to Gideon, I will be with you. Notice he's not building them up, going, Gideon, you're a man of God. You've got a cool name, and you did the fleece thing. And Joshua, you're strong and courageous. And I'm building you up, and you're awesome. No, he's like, I'm with you. Jeremiah, the weeping prophet, do not say I am only a youth, for to all whom I send you, you shall go. And whatever I command you, you shall speak. Do not be afraid of them. Why? For I am with you to deliver you, declares the Lord. Then the New Testament comes. Jesus comes in the form of a baby, puts on human skin. What is his name from the Old Testament? And we sing about it all the time. It's Emmanuel, which means God with us. Matthew 28:20, when Jesus is ascending into heaven and sending the Spirit, and behold, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. And this is really, really good news. Whatever the Lord calls us to, he also promises to be present in. We don't have to rely on our own might, our own strength, our own wisdom, our own power. Those things are great, but they're gifts of God. The only thing that's going to make a difference in any of our ministries, in any of our lives, in any of our service is the presence of God. Is God there or is he not? Is God there? I guess it's meme day. Maggie, if you go ahead and throw this one up. I saw this. You guys have seen this one before. But can you imagine that cub? I guess they're, I don't know what kind of bears. I'm assuming they're polar bears. And so you've got this little bear, and bear looks scared, but the bear is braving it out. Just imagine with me that there's a mountain lion or a tiger trying to get the little cub, okay? Morgan Freeman's narrating it. Every movie that's like this, Morgan Freeman's in the background somewhere. And so there's a mountain lion about to attack it. And all of a sudden, this cub realizes, wait, this mountain lion isn't coming at me. Mountain lion must be scared of me. I must be good enough, smart enough, doggone it, people like me. And so this bear or this mountain lion isn't coming at me. Little does little cub know that it has nothing at all to do with her. Mama bear is in the background, and that mountain lion ain't messing with her because Mama bear's there. And so this is what God is trying to communicate to us. Ladies and gentlemen, when he calls us to any kind of service, the beautiful part of that calling is his promise that he is present, that he is with you in all these things. So when Moses asks, "Who am I?" God responds with, "It doesn't matter. I am with you." And we find out later that ultimately who you are, you're beloved, you're a child of God, and that's why I'm with you. The second question Moses asked, and it's one he should have led with, is who are you then, God? Now, Moses isn't trying to discover who God's identity really is. Moses, again, is trying to do what? Get out of this mess. He doesn't want any part of the story. Now, granted, we have how it all plays out. We've got the plagues, we've got the Exodus. We understand how God redeems and brings them through the Red Sea. Moses is going, I don't know how you're going to use me. I failed. I'm miserable. I wallow in self-pity. He really sounds like a delight to be around, right? Don't you love hanging out with people who are filled with self-pity? Yeah. So this is Moses, and he knows who he is. And so he's like, okay, the whole who am I question, that didn't work. That backfired. That totally backfired because God doesn't care who I am. It's all about him. So let's try it another way. Let's go at another angle to try to get out of this. Who are you? Exodus 3, verse 13 through 15. Moses said to God, if I come, and notice this, if I come, I love that. Like God has commanded him. He's like, well, if I take you up on your offer, God, you're taking him up on his offer. He's God. It's going to happen. So if I come to the people of Israel and I say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me what is his name. So notice, he's not even talking about what am I supposed to tell Pharaoh your name is. He's like, what about your people? What about the Israelites? They don't know who I am. Once upon a time, a few might have known that I was the Prince of Egypt, but my name is no longer in vogue. So if I come to the people of Israel and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, let's just say, just out of the blue, because this is what people do, and they ask me, what is his name? What am I supposed to say to them? Doesn't it sound like a kid who's like going through it? It's just like, what if Peter pulls out, a purple bracelet? What am I supposed to, like just random stuff. What if they ask me what your name is? God said to Moses, I am who I am. And that's not from Popeye. Popeye is quoting God. And he said, say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. It is incredible. Moses realizes that the question, who am I, didn't work. So he's like, okay, God, let's turn the tables. Who are you? Because what's going to happen, God, is I'm going to go to the Israelites. I'm going to tell them, hey, guys, I'm here. I'm here to lead you out. And then, who are you? Who are you? And my answer is, well, apparently it doesn't matter who I am. What matters is God is present with me. And then they're going to ask, well, who is this God that is present with you? What is his name? What am I supposed to tell them? And God comes back with this name that we've heard before, this name, I am. I am who I am. Tell them I am has sent you. And Moses is like, yeah, right. I am. That's your name. Here's what's weird about this. In the Hebrew, we'll show this word in a minute. This word is a verb. Can you imagine naming yourself or your child after a verb? What's your name? My name's running. What's your name? My name's breathing or coughing or whatever. That's the best I could come up with. This is my name. It's a verb. Now, let's check this out. The verb in the Hebrew, the original Hebrew, is the word hayah. So like, how y'all doing? Hayah. But get some phlegm in it. So it's ha-yah, okay? It's hayah. This is first person singular, and it literally means to be. Or if God is stating his name, he is saying, I am being. I was being. I am being. I always will be being. This is who I am. This is my identity. This is what I am. I exist. I am being. This is who I am. And Moses is like, okay, yeah, great name. Great name. By the way, so that's first person singular. I am being. If you want to, so this is if God calls himself by name, it's I am being. Third person singular, which is he, she, it is. If somebody else is referring to that person, it's no longer ha-yah. Anybody want to take a guess what it is? It sounds very similar. He is Yahweh. He is Yahweh. That's the third person singular. He is being. He is self-reliant. He is self-existent. That's what's going on here. Now, let's connect the dots. Let's connect the dots because this is so cool. You remember in the New Testament, Jesus would say, hey, these people don't have eyes to see or ears to hear, right? And that's why they're not getting what God is doing. They don't have eyes to see or ears to hear. Well, what is God doing with Moses? At the burning bush, what senses, primarily, he's using all the senses, but at the burning bush, which sense is God using the most for Moses? Moses is seeing a burning bush. So with his eyes, he is being told that God is self-reliant, God is self-existent, it's just him. Okay? So with his eyes, he's being told. His eyes are open and he's being told God is self-existent. He needs no source. He needs no fuel. He needs no kindling. It's all that. And now when God audibly tells him his name, he now hears with his ears that God is self-reliant, self-existent, needs no fuel, needs no source. He alone stands, and this is who God is. So God is speaking as a fire that needs no fuel. He's totally and utterly self-reliant. He needs no outside source. He has always been this way. He is currently this way. He will always be this way. The fire that needs no fuel. Why? Because I am who I am. This is God's way of saying, I had to write it down, make sure I got this right, because it can be a tongue twister. I have no beginning or end. I always am. There never was a time in which it could be said of me that I was, because I always am, I am. There will never be a time where it can be said of me that I will be, because again, I always am, I am. So I am the one who has no outside source. I am self-sufficient. I am self-reliant. I am self-sustainable. I am. I have no beginning, no end. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I am always, I am. Theologians call this the aseity of God, the absolute self-sufficiency of God, the self-existence of God. God depends on nothing. Everything depends on him. And that's his name. So now that we know the name of God, and we met him at a burning bush, and that was a great help for Moses. Once he knew God's true identity, he was able to go back to Egypt and say to the Israelites, listen, I am who I am has sent me to you. And the rest of the story of Exodus from chapter 4 on is about God living up to that name. In every story, God is showing his people that I always am. And by the way, I am, the self-reliant one, is present in our lives every single moment if we are his. He was, he is to come. And then the interesting thing is as we turn the page into the New Testament, so we go from Malachi into Matthew, all of a sudden we're introduced to Jesus, this part of the Trinity and the Godhead. And we see him do something interesting about his name. In John chapter 8, religious guys are going after him. In John chapter 8, verse 58, Jesus says this to the people listening. Truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. Now, when I read this as a kid and had this read to me in Sunday school, it didn't mean anything to me. Nothing. But if you're a Jew and your entire faith was built on Exodus chapter 3, where God's name is I am, and this young carpenter shows up on the scene and says, hey, here's my name. Before Abraham, he doesn't even say before Moses. He goes farther back in the book, all the way to Abraham. Before Abraham was, I am. Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So he was I am, he is I am, he will be I am. And the religious rulers knew immediately what Jesus was implying. He was connecting himself back to the identity of God found all the way back in Exodus 3. And from what we've discovered in this text over the last few weeks, it's very likely that it was Jesus himself in this bush saying, I am. And now in the New Testament, he's saying to his disciples and the Pharisees and the Sadducees, oh, by the way, let me say it in Greek because you got it in Hebrew. Let me now tell it to you in Greek. My name is I am. We've discussed this. I feel like I've worn this out, but to me, it's one of the coolest Greek phrases. And understand this, in seminary, I took one semester of Hebrew and I was terrible. Hebrew is so impossible. So I know Greek better than Hebrew, but the Hebrew side of that name is incredible. Now, in the Greek, which is the New Testament is written in Greek. The Greek phrase for Jesus' title here, before Abraham was, I am, is the term ego eimi. It's two words. Ego, eimi. And you've heard this from me before. The word ego is where we get ego, I, okay? And the word eimi can stand alone. It doesn't need ego with it, like Lego and my ego. But it's just eimi. Eimi means I am. So when you attach ego to eimi, you get I am, emphatically. It's not like just, hey, I am Rob. No, it's I alone am Rob. I stand alone. I am isolated. I am emphatic about this. He is saying, before Abraham was, I existed as I am. I and I alone am I am. Then we go through John, and we see all the I am statements of John. John, and I'm not going to read all of them. John 6:35, I am the bread of life. So ego eimi, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me shall not hunger. Whoever believes in me shall never thirst. John 8:12, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. John 10:7, I am the door of the sheep. John 10:11, I am the good shepherd. John 11:25, I am the resurrection and the life. John 14:6, Jesus said to him, I am, ego eimi, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. This is my name. No one comes to the Father except through me. John 15:1, I am the true vine. My Father is the vine dresser. And so here's the secret to God's kingdom. As God seeks to help his children become more full of joy and peace, to be better, to be stronger, to be more filled with faith, which I don't know about you, but that's a prayer of mine. God, fill me with great faith. Where there's anxiety and worry, give me peace and joy. Essentially, all he's trying to do from Genesis to Revelation is to get us as his children to understand the meaning of his identity. I am. If we understand who I am is, and that I am is present with us on any mission he calls us to, ladies and gentlemen, there's no need for anxiety because it's not about you. Moses didn't need to be concerned. Moses didn't need to be afraid. All he was a vessel for the Lord to use with Pharaoh and for his people. The success or failure of the mission was not up to Moses other than obedience to what God was going to do in and through him. God was present with him. I think those of us that struggle with anxiety, I think we struggle with anxiety because we're afraid that we're going to lose control. And when we don't have control, we're antsy. Do you know what this text is telling us? Exodus 3 and every I am statement of Jesus, do you know what they're telling us? Ladies and gentlemen, you have never had control. Those times in your life where you're like, I have control, I feel good about my life, even in those moments, God was sustaining everything. He could pull the rug from under you just like that. Everything, every single bit of our life is sustained from him, through him, and to him. I hate to burst your bubble, but in doing so, it makes us relying on him. It's not about you. It's totally and completely about him. And when it's about him and he's the one that's going to do everything, all we need to do is rest and relax and obey. Martin Luther, the reformer from 16th century, one of his closest friends was another Christian reformer named Philip Melanchthon. And Melanchthon was known for his anxiety. Like, can you imagine being a theologian, a great theologian and reformer, and the thing that everybody's going to remember about you is that you were a worrywart? That's awesome. It's not awesome. It's terrible, okay? And so one day Luther is talking to his friend Philip, and he just gives him some advice. He comes out to Philip, and he says, let Philip cease ruling the world. That's a good friend. Let Philip cease ruling the world. And of course, that's how people talked back then. We're not quite that smart, but let Philip cease ruling the world. And what Martin Luther was doing here is he was using doctrine, he was using theology, he was using truth to deal with man's biggest problem, his anxiety and worry. He's like, hey, Philip, do you really think that you've been keeping the world on its axis? Do you think you've been holding it all together? Do you think you're the sovereign ruler of the world? Do you think you're in control? You see, Philip, without him, you can do nothing, and you never could. So, Philip, enjoy not being in charge. Enjoy not being in control. Rest in the one who is I am. Find your rest in him. It was always God. You were never in control. Let me close with this. Tim Keller, some of you guys might know who Tim Keller was. He was pastor of Redeemer Church in New York City. Just a gentle giant, just one of the best. And one time to his congregation, he read from an old Christian magazine a story called Palm Monday. And I'd like to share this story with you because next week is Palm Sunday. So next week, Hosanna, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Where Jesus rides into Jerusalem on the back of a donkey, and the crowds are celebrating him. Maranatha, Maranatha, Hosanna, Hosanna. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. And they're cheering him on because they think he's their political ruler who's come to take down Caesar. And you remember, Jesus is coming into Jerusalem on the back of a donkey, and what's his emotion? What's he giving off? He's crying because he knows the cross is coming. These very people that are screaming, Hosanna, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, are the ones who in a couple days are going to scream, crucify him, crucify him. And so this story is called Palm Monday, the day after Palm Sunday, and it starts with a little donkey waking up and savoring the memory from yesterday on Palm Sunday. He's so excited. You remember yesterday, Jesus on my back, and we walk in and everybody's chanting our praises. Hosanna, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. It was awesome. I was the coolest donkey this world has ever known. For the moment, the spotlight was on me as we walked into town. But now it's Monday. And he wakes up, he's like, I can't wait to see what people are going to say about me today. Let's go out. Let's go visit. Let's go show our face. Let's do it humbly. But here I am, the donkey that you were screaming these praises to yesterday. Here I am. And he comes out and he goes to the well. As he walks over to the well, there are a bunch of people who were there yesterday. And he walks over to them, but they just keep drawing water. They ignore him completely. They act like they don't even see him. He's like, what's up? So he goes someplace busier. He walks to the marketplace. He's like, surely people will notice me here. And he sees the same people that he saw yesterday in the marketplace. And he walks right up to them, ears up, very proud, and they look at him and they shoo him away. Get out of here, donkey. Now in the Christian magazine, they didn't use the word donkey. They used the old-fashioned word for donkey, but I'm good that way. They look at him and say, get out of here, you little donkey. Get out of the marketplace. What are you doing? Shoo, shoo. Then he goes down the main street because he needs the attention and everybody ignores him. And he's like, what's the matter? Where are the hosannas? Where are the palm branches? Dejected, he goes home. His mother looked at him and said, you silly donkey, don't you know, without him, you can do nothing. And I know that's a fable, but I hope that gets a point across. Our value, our worth, who am I? Who am I? It doesn't come from being Stuart Smalley and finding our identity in ourselves and telling ourselves that we're good enough. We can't. That's a lie. It's a lie. The New Testament shows us over and over again that we're wicked. Our hearts are wicked, that we're depraved. We're dead in our trespasses and sin. If we want to be truthful, we look in the mirror and we go, we're wicked. We're horrible. We're unholy. But the one who rode on the donkey, the great I am, who is self-existent, self-reliant. He's everything. He is the one who died on a cross for our sins so that any of us that put our faith in him and confess that we are sinners and that we need him and surrender to him in lordship and redemption, we find salvation, we find value, we find worth, not because of who we are in the mirror, but because of who he is in us. And that's the beauty of the gospel, is we don't deserve it. We haven't done anything about it. He's just with us. He's just with us. So for those of us that first of all struggle with anxiety, and that's me, okay? I would imagine it's most of us in this room. Some point in our lives we have to connect with the one we worship, the one we serve is the great I am. He's self-existent, he's self-reliant, he's everything we can ever need. He's with us. So everything he's ever called us to, he's always going to be with us. Now, does that mean it's going to be easy? Absolutely not. But we're never going to be orphaned. He's always with us. And that's the beauty. Now, some of you in here, you don't have this relationship with Jesus. You've never said yes to Jesus. So your life is filled with worry and struggle and wrestling. You don't even have that hope that God is with you because you haven't said yes to him. The beauty of the gospel is that this is available to all. This is available to you today. If we confess with our mouth and believe in our heart Jesus is Lord, and that God raised his son from the dead, the Bible promises that we will be saved, that our sin will be removed from us as far as the east is from the west. And in that moment, all those things that are true about us when we look in the mirror, now all of a sudden we carry Jesus's identity. We're righteous. We're whole. We're holy. We're children of God. We're sons and daughters of the King, not because we cleaned ourselves up and did awesome stuff, but because he came into our life and purchased our price. He paid the penalty for all of our sin, and now we are children of God by having faith with him. That's where we stand. This is who I am is.